It was a Tuesday night, and the living room smelled like the Thai takeout we hadn't touched, sitting cold on the kitchen counter. The TV was blaring some home renovation show, hammers banging, couples arguing over paint colors, but neither of us was watching. I was on the couch, scrolling through work emails, trying to nail a budget proposal for a client meeting tomorrow. Emily was at the dining table, her laptop open, typing like she was trying to break the keyboard. Her fingers hit the keys with a rhythm that screamed irritation. I glanced up, and she was staring at me, her eyes sharp, like I'd just spilled coffee on her favorite dress. "What's that look for?" I said, setting my phone down, already bracing for whatever was coming. She tilted her head, a half smile curling her lips, the kind that's more weapon than warmth. "Oh, nothing, Tom. Just wondering if you're ever going to step up and be more than a guy who pays the bills and calls it a marriage." The jab landed like a knife, clean and precise. It wasn't just the words. It was the tone, laced with that smug certainty she'd been honing for weeks. Like I was a tenant who forgot to take out the trash. I leaned back, keeping my voice even. "Step up how, Em? I mowed the lawn yesterday. Fixed the leaky sink last week. Paid the electric bill this morning. What's your definition of more? Lay it out." She shrugged, her eyes flicking back to her screen, dismissing me. "Maybe act like you're actually invested in us. You're always busy, but it's like you're sleepwalking through this marriage. I deserve better than a roommate." I felt my jaw tighten, but I wasn't about to let her bait me into a shouting match. "Roommate? I'm here every night, Em. I cook half the meals, keep the cars running, handle the mortgage. What's your actual complaint? Be specific, because I'm not playing guess the problem." She laughed, short and sharp, like I'd told a bad joke. "Specific? Okay, Tom. You're coasting. You do the bare minimum, and you think it's enough. I'm not some charity case who's grateful for your paycheck." I stood up, grabbing my phone, my voice still calm, but with an edge. "Bare minimum? I'm pulling my weight, and then some. You want better? Spell it out. What's really eating you? Because this vague crap isn't cutting it." She closed her laptop, slow and deliberate, like she was setting the stage for a performance. "You're just stuck, Tom. Same routine, same predictable moves. I'm married to a guy who thinks showing up is the same as showing up for me." She leaned forward, her voice softening, but it was a trap. "I need a partner, not a maintenance guy." I stepped closer, looking her in the eyes. "Maintenance guy? That's a cute spin. I'm not your punching bag, Em. You want a partner? Start acting like one. Talk to me straight, or I'm done chasing your hints." I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. "I'm going for a drive. Figure out what you actually want to say." She called after me, her voice dripping with mock concern. "Oh, poor Tom, running away from a real conversation. Don't strain yourself." I stopped, hand on the doorknob, and turned back. "Not running. Just not wasting my breath on your script. You want a real conversation? I'm here. Until then, I'm done with the sniping." I walked out, the door clicking shut behind me. My truck was in the driveway, still warm from the commute home. I drove to the gas station, bought a coffee, and sat in the parking lot, staring at the neon lights. My gut told me this wasn't just a bad night. This was a signal, a test. She was poking, seeing how far she could push before I'd snap. And I wasn't about to beg for clarity. If I'd known how deep this would go, I'd have started packing right then and there. The next morning, I was up at 6, making coffee in the kitchen. Emily was still upstairs, probably scrolling through her phone, planning her next move. I didn't wait for her to come down and start round 2. I left a note on the fridge, "At the office early. Back for dinner," and headed out. No chasing, no asking what I did wrong. If she wanted to play mind games, I wasn't signing up for the tournament. At work, I shared an office with Mike, a sales guy who'd been through 2 divorces and wore his cynicism like a leather jacket. He was at his desk, chugging a Red Bull, when I walked in, my face probably giving me away. "Rough night?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. I dropped my bag and sat down. "Emily's in a mood. Says I'm coasting, not invested enough. Threw some shade about me being a maintenance guy, like I'm just here to fix pipes and pay bills." Mike snorted, spinning a pen between his fingers. "Classic. She wants you to dance for her, man. Give her drama, attention, whatever. Don't fall for it. You start chasing, you're done. Trust me, I've been there." I nodded, but didn't reply. Mike wasn't wrong, but I wasn't ready to admit how close to home that hit. Instead, I opened my laptop and got to work on the proposal. By noon, I'd made my first move. Emily wanted me to step up. Fine. I'd give her less of me to play with. I texted her, working late. Don't wait up. No explanation, no apology. Let her sit with that. When I got home around 9, the house was dark. Emily was on the couch, her phone glowing in her hand. Some reality show paused on the TV. She didn't look up. Nice of you to grace us with your presence, she said, her voice flat, but with that familiar edge. Had work? I said, hanging my jacket on the rack. You need something? I'm here. Otherwise, I'm grabbing a shower. She set her phone down, her eyes narrowing. You're really gonna act like last night didn't happen? I turned, leaning against the wall. I'm not acting like anything. You threw a fit. I called it out. You want to talk? Talk. But I'm not digging through your hints to figure out what's wrong. She stood up, crossing her arms. You're impossible, Tom. I try to tell you how I feel, and you just shut down. It's like I'm married to a brick wall. Brick wall, I said, stepping closer. I asked you to be straight with me. You gave me coasting and a lecture about my paycheck. That's not a conversation, Em. That's a performance. I'm not your audience. I grabbed a water from the fridge and headed upstairs. Initiative 1. I wasn't chasing her mood swings anymore. Let her stew. A week later, we were at a barbecue at our neighbor's place, the Harrisons. Jim and Karen were solid folks, mid-40s, no kids, the kind who'd invite you over for burgers and never pry too deep. Their backyard was buzzing. Kids chasing each other with water guns, classic rock playing from a Bluetooth speaker, the smell of grilled meat and charcoal thick in the air. Emily was in her element, laughing with Karen and a couple other wives near the picnic table, her wine glass never empty. I was by the cooler, talking to Jim about his new F-150, when Emily's voice cut through the noise like a knife. Tom, honey, are you going to stand there all day or actually join the grown-ups? She was smiling, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes, the kind that said she was about to make a point. The group turned to look at me, and I felt the spotlight, hot and unwelcome. I grabbed a beer from the cooler, twisting the cap off, and walked over, keeping my tone light but firm. I'm here, Em. What's the plan? You need me to do a dance or tell a story to keep you entertained? The group chuckled, but Emily's smile tightened, her eyes glinting. No, just maybe act like you're part of this. You're always off in your corner, Tom. It's like I have to beg you to care about anyone but yourself. Karen raised an eyebrow, glancing between us. Jim pretended to check the grill, flipping a burger that didn't need flipping. The other wives shifted, sipping their drinks, waiting for the show. I could have let it slide, played the good husband, laughed it off. But I was done with her public jabs. Beg me to care? I said, taking a sip of my beer, my voice calm but sharp. Funny, I didn't realize talking to Jim about his truck was me ignoring you. If I'm in my corner, Em, it's because you keep pushing me there. I'm right here. What do you want? Her smile faltered, but she recovered fast, leaning back in her chair. Oh, nothing. Just thought you might want to, show up for once. Be a husband instead of a guest. The table went quiet. Karen looked at her plate. Jim coughed into his fist. I set my beer down, leaning forward just enough to meet her eyes. Show up? Got it. I'll show up when you stop staging these little performances in front of the neighbors. If you've got a problem, say it at home. Not here. I turned to Karen, my tone shifting. Great spread, by the way. You guys always kill it with these. Karen nodded, her smile tight. Thanks, Tom. Glad you could make it. Emily didn't say anything else, but I could feel her staring as I walked back to Jim, who gave me a quick nod, like he got it. That was my line in the sand, right there in the Harrisons' backyard. No yelling, no scene, just a clear message. I wasn't her prop. When we got home, I didn't bring it up. Instead, I took the guest room key off the hook and moved my clothes from our bedroom to the spare closet. No discussion, no argument. Just action. She noticed the next morning, standing in the guest room doorway, her arms crossed, her hair still messy from sleep. What's this, Tom? You're sleeping in here now? I was tying my tie, getting ready for work. Yeah, need some space. You want to talk? I'm open. But no more sniping in public. That's done. She laughed, but it was nervous, not mocking. You're being dramatic. It was one comment. Nope, I said, grabbing my briefcase. It's a pattern. I'm not your punching bag, Em. You want to fix this? Talk like an adult. I'll be at work. I walked out, leaving her standing there, her mouth half open. Initiative 2. Public boundary, set and held. That afternoon, I checked our joint account during a break. Emily had been spending more than usual. New dresses, a spa day, some fancy coffee machine we didn't need. Nothing bank-breaking, but enough to make me pause. She hadn't worked in years, by mutual agreement, but this felt like her flexing, testing how much she could take without asking. I didn't call her out. Instead, I opened a separate account and moved half my paycheck there. No announcement, no fight. Just a new rule, my money, my terms. That night, she was in the kitchen when I got home, chopping carrots with a vengeance, like she was imagining my head on the cutting board. "You're late again," she said, not looking up. "Work," I said, grabbing a water from the fridge. "You need something?" She put the knife down, turning to face me, her eyes narrow. "What's with the guest room, Tom? You're really doing this? Over one stupid barbecue." I leaned against the counter, keeping my voice steady. "Not one barbecue. It's the snarky comments, the eye rolling, the you're not enough routine. I'm done guessing what you want him. You want to talk? I'm here. But I'm not sticking around for more of your shots." She crossed her arms, her voice sharp, but laced with that fake concern again. "You're so sensitive. I'm just trying to get through to you, Tom. I want us to be close again, like we used to be. But you're making it impossible." "Close," I said, stepping closer. "You don't get close by dragging me in front of people. You've been taking shots for weeks. Public, private, doesn't matter. I'm not playing. You want to fix this? Say something real. Otherwise, I'm good in the guest room." She stared at me, her mouth tight, then turned back to her carrots. "Whatever, Tom. Do what you want." "I will," I said, grabbing my keys. "I'm meeting Mike for a beer. Don't wait up." I walked out, leaving her to her chopping. Consequence: I wasn't sticking around for her to rewrite the script. A month later, things were worse. Emily wasn't backing off. She was doubling down, but smarter. Her jabs got sharper, more calculated, wrapped in a veneer of care. She'd started scheduling couples nights with friends, then acting like I was the one dragging my feet. It was her way of keeping me on a leash, making me look like the bad guy if I didn't play along. I went, but I wasn't performing for her. One of those nights was at a fancy Italian place downtown, all exposed brick and overpriced wine. We were with two other couples, Mark and Lisa, old college friends, and Steve and Jen, who worked with Emily back when she had a job. The restaurant was loud, plates clinking, waiters dodging tables with trays of pasta. Emily was on her second glass of Pinot, her laugh a little too loud, her gestures a little too big. I was talking to Mark about a new project at work, something about streamlining our client reports, when Emily cut in, her voice carrying over the noise. "Tom, sweetheart, you're gonna put us all to sleep with your work talk?" she said, her smile all teeth, her tone dripping with fake sweetness. "Maybe share something that doesn't sound like a boardroom memo? You know, like how charming you were when we met." The table went quiet. Mark shifted in his seat, glancing at Lisa. Jen looked at her wine glass. Steve pretended to check his phone. I felt the heat in my chest, but I kept my face neutral, setting my fork down. "Charming, huh?" I said, my voice low but clear. "Funny, I didn't realize my job was such a downer. Maybe you can take the stage, Em. Tell us about that new yoga class you're obsessed with. Or how you've been redecorating my bank account." Jen coughed into her napkin, trying to hide a laugh. Emily's smile froze, her eyes glinting like she was ready to draw blood. "Oh, Tom, always so defensive," she said, leaning forward, her voice soft but venomous. "I'm just trying to help you loosen up. You used to be fun, you know. Like Mark. Look at him, always got a story to tell." Mark looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. I leaned back, taking a slow sip of my beer, letting the silence stretch. "Fun like Mark? Got it. Here's the deal, Emily. You want fun, I'm happy to step back and let you run the show. But don't cry when I'm not your audience." I turned to the table, my tone even. "Sorry, folks. I'm gonna grab some air. Enjoy the meal." I stood, walked to the bar, and paid my half of the bill in cash. Then I drove home, the city lights blurring past. No yelling, no scene, just a clean exit. When Emily got back, she found me in the guest room, reading a book on my tablet. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, still in her dress from dinner. "You embarrassed me," she said, her voice low, almost a hiss. I set the tablet down, meeting her eyes. "Nope. You did that yourself. I'm not your prop, Em. You want to take shots, do it in private. Or better yet, don't. She stepped closer, her voice shaking but controlled. You walked out in front of our friends. You made me look like an idiot. You made yourself look like an idiot, I said, standing up. You don't get to drag me through the mud in public and expect me to smile. I'm done with that game. You want respect, give it. Until then, I'm sleeping here. I shut the door, not hard, just firm. She didn't knock. Initiative 3, public boundary, set and held. The next day, I canceled our joint credit card. She'd have to use her own from now on, linked to her personal account. I didn't tell her. She'd figure it out when the next spa bill came due. No discussion, no warning. Just a new reality. Emily didn't let up, but she got craftier. Instead of public jabs, she switched to guilt, wrapped in a performance of care. She'd leave notes around the house. Miss you. Can we talk? She'd cook my favorite meals, steak with garlic mashed potatoes, apple pie from scratch, acting sweet for a day, then slip back into her old ways, like a snake shedding one skin for another. It was a cycle, and I was done riding it. One Sunday, I came home from the gym to find her in the living room, a glass of wine in her hand, her eyes red like she'd been crying. I knew the script. This was her big move, the one where she'd play the victim and expect me to cave. I didn't. Tom, she said, her voice soft, almost fragile. I don't know what's happening with us. I feel like you're giving up on me. I sat down across from her, keeping the coffee table between us. I'm not giving up. Em, I'm done playing defense. I've been trying to talk for months. You shut me down, make it my fault. I'm not the bad guy here. She leaned forward, her voice breaking, but her eyes were calculating. You think I'm the bad guy? I'm trying, Tom. I'm trying to keep this together, and you're just cold. You're sleeping in the guest room, you're never here. I'm lonely, and you don't even care. I looked at her, really looked, and saw it. She wasn't sorry. She was scared of losing control, not me. I stood up, my voice calm but firm. I'm worried about our marriage, Em. I'm worried we're past the point of fixing it. I need respect, not games. Can you give me that? She laughed, bitter and sharp, leaning back. You're just scared of being alone, Tom. That's what this is. You're running because you can't handle being by yourself. That was it. The line that cut through everything. I didn't flinch, didn't raise my voice. I just nodded, slow and deliberate. Maybe, but I'd rather be alone than disrespected. I walked upstairs, pulled a duffel bag from the closet, and started packing. Shirts, jeans, shoes, essentials only. I left the bag by the front door, right where she'd see it. No yelling, no fight, just a choice. She wasn't done, though. The next evening, she pulled a new card. She'd invited Lisa over for dinner, just the three of us, without telling me. I walked in from work to find them in the dining room, candles lit, plates of lasagna on the table. Lisa looked uncomfortable, like she'd been roped into something. Emily was all smiles, her voice syrupy sweet. Tom, you're home, she said, standing up, like she was auditioning for Wife of the Year. I thought it'd be nice to have Lisa over. You know, to reconnect. You've been so busy, I figured I'd take the lead. I set my briefcase down, glancing at Lisa, who was studying her wine glass like it held the secrets of the universe. Nice gesture, Em, I said, keeping my tone neutral. But next time, give me a heads up. I've got plans tonight. Emily's smile didn't waver, but her eyes tightened. Plans? You didn't mention anything. I went out of my way to make this nice for you. I grabbed a water from the fridge, leaning against the counter. Yeah, and I appreciate the effort. But I'm not a fan of surprises, especially when they're about reconnecting on your terms. Lisa, good to see you. Sorry, I've got to head out. I nodded to Lisa, who gave a small, awkward wave and walked to the door. Emily followed me, her voice low but sharp. You're really doing this? Walking out on dinner I planned for us. I turned, meeting her eyes. You didn't plan this for us, Em. You planned it to look good. I'm not playing along. You want to talk? I'm here. But not like this. I grabbed my keys and left, heading to Mike's place for a beer. Initiative 4. I wasn't letting her stage manage my life. The next morning, she was in the kitchen, making coffee, when she saw the bag by the door. Her face went pale, her hands froze on the coffee pot. What's that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. My stuff, I said, pouring myself a cup. I'm done, Em. You want to talk? You know where to find me. but I'm not living like this anymore. She stepped closer, her voice shaking but still trying to hold the reins. You're leaving? Just like that? After everything I've done to fix this? I set my mug down, looking her in the eyes. Fix this? You've been playing games, Em. Notes, dinners, tears, it's all control, not fixing. I asked for respect. You gave me a script. I'm done. I grabbed my briefcase and walked out, leaving her standing there, the coffee pot still in her hand. That day, I called a realtor and put a deposit on a condo downtown. I didn't tell her. She'd find out when the moving truck showed up. The next week was quiet, too quiet. Emily stopped with the notes, the tears, the staged gestures. She moved around the house like a ghost, avoiding me, her eyes darting away whenever I walked into a room. I didn't chase her. I'd said my piece. The realtor finalized the lease, and I set a move-out date for Saturday. I called Mike and Jim to help with the boxes. No drama, just logistics. Saturday morning, the truck was in the driveway, and Mike and Jim were hauling my stuff. Emily was in the kitchen, pretending to clean the counter, her movements jerky, like she was trying to keep her hands busy. Mike clapped me on the shoulder as he carried out a box of books. You good, man? Yeah, I said, taping up another box. Better than I've been in a while. Jim didn't say much, just carried my desk chair to the truck, his face unreadable. Karen had wanted to come, but Jim told her to sit this one out. Too much tension. When we were done, the living room looked half empty, my side of the closet bare. I walked back inside, keys in hand. Emily was still at the counter, her back to me, scrubbing the same spot she'd been at for 10 minutes. You're really doing this, she said, her voice flat, not turning around. Yep, I said, leaning against the doorway. I told you what I needed. You made your choice. I'm making mine. She turned, her eyes red but dry, her arms crossed tight. You're throwing away 10 years, Tom. For what? Your pride. I stepped closer, my voice steady, no anger, just truth. Not pride, Em. Dignity. You thought you could rewrite who I am, keep me on a leash. You were wrong. I grabbed my jacket, slung it over my shoulder, and walked to the door. Good luck, Emily. You're gonna need it. The door clicked shut behind me, and I didn't look back. Mike and Jim were waiting by the truck, the engine already running. I climbed in, and we drove off, the house shrinking in the rear view. That was it. No second ask, no chasing. Just a clean exit. 6 months later, I'm in my condo, a one-bedroom with a view of the city skyline. It's small, but it's mine. The walls are still bare, but I've got a couch, a TV, and a coffee maker that doesn't come with a side of sarcasm. My routine's simple. Work, gym, beers with Mike on Fridays. Jim and Karen invite me over for dinner sometimes, and I go. But I'm not the guy who needs a crowd to feel whole. Last week, I ran into Lisa at the grocery store. She was in the cereal aisle, looking tired, like she hadn't slept. Tom, she said, her voice hesitant. I heard you moved out. I'm sorry about that dinner. Emily said it was supposed to fix things. I grabbed a box of Cheerios, tossing it in my cart. No worries, Lisa. It wasn't about the dinner. She wanted control, not a fix. I'm good now. She nodded, her eyes flicking away. She's not handling it well. Keep saying you'll come back. I shrugged, pushing my cart forward. She's wrong. I don't go back to places that don't respect me. Lisa didn't say anything else, just gave a small nod and walked away. Word's been getting around. Karen mentioned at dinner that Emily's been quieter, less social. The neighbors noticed the moving truck, the empty driveway. Mike said he saw her at a coffee shop, alone, looking like she was trying to hold it together. She thought I'd never leave. She was wrong. I'm not saying it's perfect. Some nights, I think about the early days, when her laugh didn't have an edge, when we'd stay up talking about nothing and everything. But then I remember the jabs, the control, the way she thought I'd been forever. I didn't. I walked. And I'm still standing, stronger.